Welcome, dear listeners, to the WIP show, brought to you by Kimaya Creatives, where we dive deep into the world of writing and creativity. I'm Namrata, your host and the founder of Kimaya Creatives. WIP, you might ask. Well, it stands for Writing in Progress, and that's exactly what we are all about here. Each week, we bring you inspiring conversations with talented writers, delving into their journeys, their challenges, and the stories behind their stories. From seasoned authors to aspiring wordsmiths, we explore the nooks and crannies of the writing process. Whether it's overcoming writer's block, finding inspiration in the unlikeliest of places, or simply navigating the wild, wonderful world of words, we are here for it all. Grab your favorite writing mug, settle into your coziest writing nook, and join us as we celebrate the beauty and the chaos of the writing life. Today's episode is a bit special, not just because we are diving into one of the wildest, wickedest, and the wackiest family sagas you will read this year, but because I get to do it with someone I have known for over a decade now. So, Rochelle isn't just a prize winning poet, author, and screenwriter, she is a literary shapeshifter. From razor sharp poetry to darkly comic fiction and cinematic scripts, she's done it all. And I have had the joy and occasional awe of watching her journey unfold since her very first book. And let me tell you, it's been the front row seat to a voice that's only grown bolder, braver, and far more unhinged in the best possible way. Her latest novel, The DaCosta Family, is a righteous ride through grief, inheritance, and glorious chaos. Think of crumbling patriarchs, graveyard secrets, politics, lovers, guns that go off, sometimes literally and sometimes metaphorically. And somewhere in this madness, Rochelle sneaks in sharp truths about family, feminism, and the farce of power. So settle in because we are talking about mad matriarchs, writing across genres, literary mischief, and what it really means to write from the edge of satire and soul. Let's get onto it. Welcome, Rochelle, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Namrata. And you are my journey woman. We know each other for so many years. And what a beautiful introduction. This is the most beautiful introduction I've had.
Thank you.
What
Thank
would
you
you
so.
expect?
I think our friendship deserved this special, glimpse of
Thank you.
interaction. Yeah.
One day I want to return this favor, okay?
Absolutely. So let's start with our first question, Rochelle. So this novel, The DaCosta Family, is steeped in absurdity, grief, and power struggles. What inspired this chaotic brilliance? Was there a moment, an incident? How did the first idea come?
So you see, this idea, Namrata, was brewing with me from the time I was very young because it's actually my childhood story, so to speak. And
Ah,
in the preface, I mentioned that I was born and brought up in a landlord's house until I was an adolescent, and then we moved to nuclear families. So when I was a kid, I had been privy to what the landlords do or say, and what the tenants are all about, and this big ground in the middle, which now is a building, but then it was a ground, and nothing of this what I wrote here in this novel, The DaCosta Family, is true, okay? Because imagine me doing that to my family. They don't read my books, or they don't read my poems, so I got away with a lot of gossip, but I have to know my limits. I can't get into
right.
legal trouble. But so none of this is really, really true, but a lot of it is the same characters extrapolated. Because I saw so many of family members, I saw so many tenants, I saw so many people rather than, the hierarchies they are in, just people. And mostly the Goan Catholic family community, because that's where I came from.
Right.
But this was a story that was in my zehen, or in my mind, for the longest time, because these are childhood stories. And you know what happens as writers with childhood stories? We have one of them or we have 100 of them. They need to someday get out on the paper. You need to get them out of your system so that you can write other stories. But this was a story that was there for long. Now, this story didn't want to come out the way I thought about it first. It didn't want to be a multi-generational family story, literary. It was not willing to come out that way. So I was stuck with this. I was writing all kinds of stories, but this one was not willing to come. So then finally, you have this conversation as a writer with your story. Hey, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I mean, why are you not budging? or nudging, what's wrong? And the story said, I want to come out in a mad way, in a whacked out way. The story one day said, Maggie is not awakened, but she's awake. She's alive, but she's not awake. So Maggie is in a dream, because if Maggie awakens, she will question, why is this injustice going on? So Maggie is nearly asleep or half asleep, and that's how the story wanted to come. In its absurdity, in its whacked out way, it wanted to not come straight. It was like a slantward birth. And then
Wow.
it was ready to come out only then. So even the stories are such entities that will tell you when they're ready to come out or ready to unfurl, or they're not ready. And it's an instinctive thing as a writer, that you are like, okay, I can't force this story out, I can't force birth it, it comes out. And then it was ready to be told. The Library of Secrets was another reason why it wanted to be told, because Avo has a library of secrets and something is going on there, and it wanted to be told in a bit of magic realism, in a bit of a lot of satire, humor, delulus. There are all delulus in this book, and that's how it wanted to be told, not straight.
I must tell you that I loved the story. I have never loved it. In
And
the last, I think I laughed so much was on Chetan Bhagat's Two States. So I
I'm so glad. Because there are some readers, most of the readers are getting the fact that this is a stand-up comedy book, but there are some readers who are still going thinking it's literary fiction, or it's a deeply meaningful book, a serious one, and they come out differently. You have to go thinking that it's a light read. There's a lot of seriousness
yeah.
under that humor. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you,
honestly,
thank you.
knowing your work, I actually entered it assuming that, but you broke all the thoughts that I had and all the limits, and you literally took me by surprise. And the
I'm
climax
so
is my favorite. I have reread it so many times. So
Oh
like,
my
there are
God.
books, there are books which you just mark because when you are in a reading slump or you're feeling very low, you want to read something
Yeah.
nice. This is one of those books that I do. I keep it like
And
that.
I must tell you, when writing this book, I have never chuckled as much writing anything than I have chuckled here. We talk about the inner voice. I thought of my inner chuckle.
That's lovely because that shows in each and every line that you've done.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
brings me to the humor quotient. This has softened the darkness in your book, but
yes,
you never tried to hide it. The darkness is there along with the humor. So how do you
yeah.
see the role of comedy when writing violence, betrayal, or social dysfunction?
Yeah, so I use this comedy as a device, okay, this hasya rasa, but at the same time, I knew that I was going to be very loyal to the characters or the story. So if it is a story about greed, if it's a story about betrayals, or it's a story about family feuds, that can't hide.
Right.
But I didn't want to hide that either, because I wanted to actually celebrate it or have it out there on the table. But I wanted to use humor because I think I discovered this during my poetry hyphenated screenplay days, when I was, how do you say, towards the fag end of writing poetry and towards the beginning of writing screenplays, where I discovered the hasya rasa is not something I used often. And I was wondering, why am I not using this device when I'm such a comic person at home? I'm a clown. A lot of my friends, even my kid, says that you're so funny. So I have a lot of funniness in me, and I was like, why am I not using this device in my writing? Why am I only writing serious stuff the serious way, or using the other rasas but not this one? So I thought I'll use this. So there will be a lot of craze going on, but the story is what it is. It is a story about greed. It is a story about madness, delusion. It's a story about betrayals. It's a story about how family dynamics work or don't work. It's a story about all these things are there, because that's what it inherently came with.
True. Coming to my favorite character, Rita. So she's a very fascinating anti-heroine. Like, she's manipulative, she's power hungry, she's yet, you feel oddly sympathetic towards her character. So what was your process in shaping her arc? And were there any women in literature or life who formed her character for you? Who
Yeah.
was there in your thoughts when you were working?
I think if you're a good social observer, and the more you are a good inner gossiper. You can you don't have to do character arcs because you plagiarize them from life. So this Rita DaCosta is plagiarized from my grandmother, okay, Violet Fernandez, and that's why Burgundy House was actually Violet House.
Wow.
So in that parallel, but I didn't have to do much because I think if I'm an observer, a very acute observer, I already have my character archetypes kept in archive.
Yeah.
Use them whenever you want them. You don't have to do that work for that. Okay, so I keep a lot of archives. So here it was very natural because she was my grandmother. I could take her and I could make and whatever I wanted out of her, and without her permission, of course. And I did it. And of course, I extrapolated. See, most of this is concoction, but I've used the same premise, the setting. By the way,
Mhm.
Kalyan is Kalyan, but I called it Callin because the British called Kalyan
Yeah.
Callian. And my father still calls it Callian, by the way. So I wanted all those absurdities also there. But this was Rita DaCosta was my grandmother extrapolated to whatever mad levels I wanted as a fiction writer, storyteller, because I also wanted to entertain myself as I'm writing, as I'm entertaining others. So, what would she do in this premise wherein she wants to, she's told this is her mission, and then she realizes much later, oh, that's not my mission. I have been planted in this whole scheme. This is not what I'm going to get out of it. But yeah, it is her. It is her. So I didn't have to work very hard, Namrata.
That's lovely. The other thing what I noticed, is Rochelle, you explored moral ambiguity through nearly every character in this book. Like, no one is fully good, no one is fully evil. So, was that ambiguity a deliberate rejection of the hero villain binaries that we usually see in stories about family and legacy?
That's a very interesting question. Only you could have asked this question, because because so many times we do think of like very black and white characters,
Yeah.
like hero villains, but in this case, I think I would credit my processes of screenplay, because when I became a screenwriter, one of the things was to know that the antagonist is the protagonist of his or her story. The moment you know that, you look at the antagonist's point of view of the story and you realize you cannot judge as a writer they are good and bad,
True.
unless of course they are real hardcore criminals, gang rapists with a small amygdala. Then you don't have to think about the gray. But if they are anywhere in the middle as antagonists, they will be gray and they are the protagonists of their story, so it automatically liberates you from being judgmental. So I think the first thing that dropped off for me as a person is to not become judgmental in my life,
Yeah.
outside of writing, because my screenplay process has told me that you cannot judge the character because the only the audience will judge, or the audience will accept and assimilate the gray, because they would also understand that that is why and that's why the initial reactions I got from readers after reading this book, they say that the characters are flawed and that's what makes them realistic. And the people readers are ready to take in the gray, they don't want the white and the black. But I felt that from my experiences of writing characters for screen, no one is good or bad, they are all somewhere in the middle, conflicted, irrational. You say something now, you there's a difference between the preaching and practice. You say something now, you will contradict yourself a little later. You will mean something else in another phase of your life. In another mood, you will say something else. We are all very irrational, so to speak. And I thought that was a good place because even morally, that is so. We are not good and bad people. We are everything together. And then it's the choices we make or the characters make that makes us people or whom we are. So I use that same thing, and it somehow liberated me as a writer because that's the resonant truth I feel, that no one is completely good or completely bad. You'll always find those corners wherein they'll redeem themselves or they'll try to realize something or they'll become better versions of themselves. The processes may be long. Maybe someone realizes, because they live a very self-examined life as a character or a person faster, and someone takes the whole story to realize. But then that's what a story was about, an act one, two, three. Or then sometimes you're a very realized soul and you've arrived in the act one, but then story khatam. So it was all this, but yeah.
That reminds me of that one quote which is always used in a lot of healing processes also, is that you are always going to be a villain in somebody's story. You will never know it. So you, the way you say, no, that the antagonist is a protagonist in their story. So it works
Yes,
either ways, that somebody will see is good, somebody will see as bad.
absolutely.
We are not
Absolutely.
completely 100% anything.
That's so true. That's so true. And that probably is completing some 360-degree arc, right?
Yeah,
Of you being good and bad and everything, a saint to a sinner. Yeah. The whole continuum. Yeah.
very true. So coming back to Rita again, so from playing the patriarchal game to rejecting it, she mirrors many women's awakenings, you know. So how do you see her evolution in the context of power, complicity, and eventual defiance?
So I feel that this is actually more than just a character in this framework of
Yeah.
the book or the house or or the town of Kalyan or what is happening outside this house of Burgundy House. I was also thinking about women generally in a male dominated society.
Hmm.
We are so much like men in taking decisions, in being very cutthroat, that sometimes we forget our softness, we forget our skills like multitasking or nurturing abilities, because we are always trying to be warriors like men to fight that on equal playing fields, especially outside the house. So I think even inside the house here, Rita is confronted by her Joseph's men, that that's a secret, but it's a legacy. She's confronted by her husband under whose suppression she is for the longest time. Then her elder son, who is trying to keep her on a back foot. Only it's her younger son Jason who listens to her. So she is also undergoing that same thing, which has shaped her to be thinking like a man, playing chess like you play in a very gamey sort of way, rather than moving to the more feminine sides of humanity, which is nurturing, which is inclusiveness, which is collective growth. So I think her journey is the journey of this whole book, because that's a journey of many women perhaps. And you're right when you say that the awakenings come up much later, ki, hey, why are we behaving like men when we can behave, when we are women, and when we have our natural side of nurturing, so which is much more powerful than these gamey things.
Yeah.
Because the gamey things are only like, one person benefits, one person doesn't, but the nurturing is like everyone benefits.
True.
So it's a very socialistic way of looking at things, and I think Rita's entire journey takes her to that realization. Whereas if you notice Maggie,
Hmm.
why was she kept asleep is because she already was arrived.
Yeah.
That's why I had to keep her asleep. So the metaphor is that if Maggie awakens, and she eventually awakens into growing up, because at the end, the epilogue, she says that when I grow up, I'm going to be the Dawn, because she wants to be Dawn. She wants the power because she subscribes to the power games. She's not yet realized that she doesn't have to subscribe to that, but she says, I'm going to like rectify all the injustices. So Maggie was already arrived.
Yeah.
What Maggie knows, Rita took an entire lifetime to understand.
Yeah.
Ki, why am I not being just to everybody? Why am I, being party to this where I'm gaining nothing? And even if, of course, if she was gaining, she would have to go through some realization, I hope. But here she's gaining nothing. So why am I supporting this hierarchy, this system of injustice? I'm not gaining anything. It's better to share it with everybody. But Maggie already knows this.
Hmm.
That's why Maggie was kept asleep.
Very
Because when Maggie awakens, the story's over.
Yeah. That's very interesting to know. So, uh, in this book, Rochelle, along with humor, chaos also seems to be a narrative device and a metaphor that you've used. So, is madness in this novel a form of resistance or a symptom of a collapsing system or something else? What were you thinking?
When I was not maybe more through this book that I'm looking through the lens of madness, but even otherwise, when I've been looking at absurdity, I've been finding things absurd for a very long time, whether it's the world systems, whether it's smaller ecosystems, whether it's, country specific, world specific. I find a lot of things very, very absurd and disturbingly so. Sometimes funnily so. You're like, how could it be that absurd? And there's a point when you reach in your life and you will know this, and you start laughing. You are like outrageously amused. Ki, how is this happening? There's a time when you used to get angry over the same things. Now you're
Yeah.
laughing over those because maybe it's helplessness, it's resignation. I don't know what it is, but you're like, how? So that madness comes from there. It's like uh, more and more nowadays, I'm noticing the absurdity or the madness that people in general have. Even I might have that around us of irrationalities. And I'm like, how do we do this? How are we pulling this? How are we doing it? Pulling it off. And so I think I used this here because I allowed myself, I gave myself the permission to be very wild and crazy here. I don't think I have allowed myself as much of wild, mad freedom in any other book or piece of work so far. I've not done a lot, but I have
I
done
can
whatever little.
vouch for that.
Here I was like, tu pagal ho ja. Just do it, man. And there is this also, I think this is as a growth as a writer, because there's a time when you're very worried about what other people will think about your writing. Then you cross those phases wherein you know that generally you might be a good writer. You know that, oh, acha, theek hai, there's one small section which may not like your writing. You're fine with the whole platter then. You're fine with a bit of critique. You're fine with a bit of praise, criticism, prizes, accolades. You're fine with the brickbats. You're fine with some very severe criticism. You're fine with generally everything. That's when you leave the grid. You start becoming bold enough to know that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Now write the stories you want to write. You have nothing to prove to anyone. So I
True.
think I also became that kind of storyteller who now doesn't fear. Of course, crossing 40 also I think matters. What we age in life is also how we age through our writing. Because now, in any case, you don't give a damn after 40. And then as a writer, you don't give a damn. So you're like, okay, let me just write whatever the hell I want to write and let me enjoy myself. So this time it's about humor, but I might be writing different kinds of genres, okay, because humor was one, but I let myself go. Honestly speaking, this was no hold bars. As much as fun, I was chuckling all the time. There was a point, Namrata, wherein I must tell you, this has never happened with another book of mine. I was reading one of the proofed copies.
Okay.
Okay, that is a time when you have gone through a manuscript 1,000 times.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are tired. You're so tired that you feel like ants are roaming in your eyes. You're that tired. At that time also, I happened to find a surprising line, and I'm chuckling. Never before has this happened. I used to get tired of proofed manuscripts. You just wanted to go. This
Yeah.
is the first time I'm reading it for the 10th or the 20th time, and still there's a phrase which is batshit wild. And I'm like, I really wrote this. I really let myself go. Like bindas.
Yeah.
Kuch dar nahi. Here.
Y-
Yeah.
when I was in my early 20s, I was working with somebody who was in her 40s. So
Okay.
I just had, and she was completely bindas, huh, like this. She wouldn't even mince her words. So I just asked her, I said, how do you do this? Like, can you teach me? I'm still struggling. And she's like, I've crossed 40. I'm like, yeah. So like, after 40, the only thing is life is too short to be politically correct all the time. That's all it rings.
Correct.
So when I brought in
Correct.
my 40, that was the first one. Now I can afford to be not politically correct all the time.
And even though they say this, till you really cross 40 and understand that I don't care anymore, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
40 years, I pretended
Yeah.
to be liked, to want to be liked, to please, and now go to hell. Let me be myself.
That when you said that, no, she immediately came to my mind.
Right. So,
So
the same reflection, because we're also not just women, not just humans crossing 40, but also writers. The same thing reflects all our life now is a reflection of being the writer, and the writer or the creator is a reflection of being it crossovers.
true,
It
very
crosses over in terms of learnings. So I think the same Bindasi came in the writer in me.
very true.
The writer also crossed 40.
Very true, very true. So, as you said, you've been screenwriting and that has impacted this writing. So, how has it changed your approach in terms of pacing, dialogues, character arcs? It's a very different art form from fiction, from writing fiction, of course, because it brings a visual and a structural discipline.
Yes. So see, when I was a poet for the longest time, because I wrote short stories, but then there was a long journey, or at least 7 years of being a poet, only a poet, and poetry, haibun, haiku. You know how I was trying to, like have people fall in love with haiku. And I don't know why I was going crazy because I love the form so much. And now people love the form. So in my small bit, I was trying to do what everyone was doing, make people fall in love with
Yeah.
write haibun, books and haibun. But then when I came to screenplays, so when I was writing poetry and haibun, it was more serious
Hmm.
themes, serious topics, serious characters. I remember one reader saying that very simply to me that Paper Asylum, the book of haibun that I wrote, had so much of heartbreak in it. Why is every haibun has a fulcrum of heartbreak? And I was like, because I was in that period of time. That was a snapshot of my life at that time, that it was a percolation of all memory or epiphanies of things not being so hunky-dory. Bombay Hangovers was a different thing. When I came to screenwriting, something completely changed in me. See, I believe that every art form brings out something new in you. Okay, a new person or a new dimension opens up in you. So when I was writing free verse, I was a different person. Haibun, I was a different person. Haiku, I was different because you have to be so cinematically present in those moments of haiku moments. Whether you write them down or not is not a question. Are you living those haiku moments? Are you watching that squirrel jump? Are you watching that butterfly? Are you watching the quivering of those leaves? You live haiku moments, so you become another person. When I came to screenwriting, it was a complete different experience. And if I want to just synopsize it, for me it was that I could write something so dynamic that I don't think a novel allowed me that dynamism. So it completely set me crazy. So in spite of the fact that there are lots of challenges as a screenwriter, see, I'm still an outsider in the film industry. Okay, and I'm a better outsider than I was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, but I'm still an outsider. So I should have left, packed my bags and left. Because there is a limit to how much you can pitch, network and all. I'm there because I fell in love with the art form of screenplay because it was so dynamic a storytelling device. See, the basic difference is that in the first scene of a screenplay, your character is already talking and your character is already known. You can't bullshit that. In a short story, in a novel, you can play around, you can play golf. You can talk about the swaying of the coconut trees, the lovely panoramic view of the village or the sea, a city, sea. You're waiting till the character starts speaking. Sometimes you know that the character is not yet talking to you. You know the character's there, but they're not starting to speak to you. In screenplay, you cannot bullshit with swaying of the coconut trees because that's just one line. Okay, that's one line. You can't bullshit. The character has to speak. And I think that makes it a very dynamic and quick form that you as a storyteller need to know the character now because character is talking to you and it's talking to themselves. And that's not as fast as it happens in novels or short stories. You can still gallivant around with 1 2 pages and then there'll be a dialogue. You can do that and the reader will flow along. So that is one thing that changed. And because of that, I always felt that a screenplay is like kerosene, and your imagination is like the phosphorus and the flame. It'll light up. Now what that did to me is that it changed me as a storyteller, and it I discovered a new person in me, a new storyteller who's ready to tell stories not just of literary fiction or art cinema-ish, but who's ready to tell mixed genre rom-coms, thrillers, courtroom dramas, horror, anything, anything, family comedy. So then I became a very expanded storyteller because of this form, because it demands so much more out of you. It challenges you. It gives you an entire sky. It gives you an infinite cave and says, go pick whatever treasure you want. Go write anything. Go write that thriller story. Go write that thing. And a novel or a short story kept me more, targeted in a certain interiority. I was more contained, and it was more smaller in canvas. It was more concentrated in time, like the Bombay hangover stories. But the screenplay form says go explore. You want to write a space story, go write it. You want to write some, I don't know, speculative surrealism, go do it. You want to do horror, you want to do mixed genre. So I became another person, another storyteller altogether. So then when I came back, now I've become another storyteller to prose as well. So when I think of, your question on pacing, I think pacing is a lot to do with uh, probably how much of depth you want to explore. Like if you want to go very deep, like almost literary fiction to the depth of the iceberg, then you go layer after layer, you go. Then it becomes more art cinema-ish. Or do you want to cut it short with just 3 lines, just the tip to the middle of the iceberg? Or do you want to just do the tip of the iceberg because you can also synopsize depth and move fast? Because you know that a good actor will carry it on.
Yeah.
You give a good character sketch, they'll carry it on. You know that a good director will know how to show this in silence, subtly, subtext. You don't need to write that down. So a lot of mechanisms shift then. Instead of writing one entire paragraph, you write just one line. You just use stereotypes, like how last I came across somebody saying South Bombay mom, shortcut, we got it, we got it. Or
3
just
words and we know.
got it. So stereotypes, that is, or the archetypes, what do you call it? Just one line, just have one parenthesis of the character. Character 45, sly, stout. Got it. Got it. Okay. Agent, or let's say broker. You got it. You don't need more than that to show anything else. Or a gold-toothed fisherman. I miss the gold-toothed fishermen nowadays, which I used to see in my childhood. I used to always wonder how they kept their reserves, Swiss banks here. So these little things, but you can quickly do them. So I think each art form that you employ or engage in, it changes you and challenges you to its limits. And the screenplay limit is the maximum, according to me. Uh, a novel is very deep and a screenplay is very wide in canvas.
Yeah, that's very interesting to know. So now the line between literary and popular fiction can feel artificial, especially in India. So where do you place your work, if at all, and how do you navigate that tension?
Mm. So, I never thought I was much of a literary fiction writer, but because I don't come from literature studies, so that's what always happens. You're never defined because you come from other streams. Like I came from, marketing or postgrad in advertising. I never really knew what kind of writer I was. For the longest time, I knew I wanted to write. Then comes the genre or the slotting key or this or that, and you realize, acha, literary fiction is deeper, very meaningful. It may have a lot of, sometimes it's very digressive, sometimes it's very descriptive, and popular fiction might be faster. The pace is different. You might be telling the same depth, but you're synopsizing it. Okay, you're making it shorter. It's closer to screenwriting. When it's very abstract, it's closer to poetry. So I think what I understood, Namrata, is that more than literary fiction or popular fiction, I'm looking for the linguistic pitch. So because I have been a poet, and when I was a poet, you use very sophisticated linguistic embellishments because you can really, take language to the highest levels of abstraction. Okay, you can play with it to its maximum level. It's almost like playing with air. Yeah, you can mold air. And when you become a screenplay writer, you need to write it plain and simple and visual, very functional. And so somewhere in the middle is writing novels or writing short stories. Do I become that very abstract poet with great linguistic flair? Or do I become very functional and clean and simple visual verb based screenwriter? Or do I be somewhere in the middle? So for me, I think more than the genre, it was the linguistic pitch that I needed to keep in a way that I wanted, my Indian fellow readers to also enjoy that, and I also hoped that international readers would enjoy it. But I wanted everybody to partake in it, because one of the feedback that I had from the Coins and Rivers was that they wanted to enjoy the poem, but some of the poems were too much for them. They couldn't grasp it. The language was too much, too complex, too deep. So I didn't want that to happen to the stories. So I decided to keep a certain linguistic pitch, which is what you'll find in now all my, like you'll find it in Bombay Hangovers, you'll find it in, this book is to thoda sa mad, but you'll find it in the next one, which is a little more sane, The Fabric Goddesses. So that. But I think I might be closer to popular fiction than literary fiction, because I myself am so impatient about describing a lot of interiority, or just thinking and thinking deeply and deeply about it, or writing paragraph full of everything. I like it to be 3 lines and enough. I feel impatient to just go to the next twist or the next bend. So my impatience is going to inform that genre. So I think I might not be as much a literary fiction writer, even though I'm a poet. I might turn out to be more the genre writers. And also, I don't think I'll fit. I'm going to be a misfit all the time. I'll tell you why. Because every book of mine that's coming up now, so I have written around 22 screenplays that I'm pitching. They are all in different genres. Some of them are thrillers, some are rom-com,
Right.
some is a romance drama, one is a courtroom drama, one is a horror. So they're different. So now the novels, not all of them are being novelized. I'm novelizing few of them that have dual passport or dual visa. There are some story ideas that fit in as a book and they fit in as a script because they have the dynamism and the interiority. But not every story has that. So some of them will be overlapping, some of them will not be. They will be separate independent units. But what I have understood is that I'm going to write every book as a different genre. So my next book, which is called Fabric Goddesses, which is currently, being worked on, is a very serious story of 3 women around the garment and fashion industry. And the other one is a thriller. The third one that I'm sketching is a thriller, out and out thriller. And there's another one which is somewhere in the sketchy stages, is a courtroom drama. So I think I'm going to be a complete misfit. No one will know what next is going to come out from me. Even I don't know that. So that's the crazy thing. I'm like, oh my God, you're also going to break slots. You're going to be one of those writers who no one knows what's going to be their next book.
That's exciting for me as a reader, a long time reader. But that also makes me want to ask you this question, that each of your work has always been tonally very distinct, which you've also said that in future also we are in for a lot of surprises. So do you feel this need to reinvent yourself with each book, or is there a core obsession that threads them all together?
No, I think it is, each book is a snapshot of my life and my growth as a person or my discoveries. So I think when I was writing 4 Degrees of Separation, I was this kind of a person or this kind of a poet. By the time I reached through Paper Asylum, it was a percolation of, as some readers said, heartbreak. But I think it was a very confessional, intimate state of, something expressing. When I wrote Bombay Hangovers, I was in a very noisy, buzzy space of the city. So many characters inside me, I wanted to put them out and pay homage to the city. By the way, one of which, Salad, which has become now a short film called Sejari, is going to come out soon. We shot for it in Goa.
Wow.
And I saw the process of what it means for a short story to become a short script adapted by me, but a short film directed by Sonu Anand, the director. So to see this whole process. And I think by the time I've reached DeCosta, I've become mad, but I'm going to be sane again in Fabric Goddesses. I'm going to be suspicious in my thriller. I'm going to be dead serious and paranoid in the courtroom drama. So I think I'm changing with all the Navarasas. I'm on this revolving Navarasa thali. Okay. And something is coming out every time. And I have no prediction on what will come out. But yeah, I think that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And that's scary also, no? Because I I can't be put in a certain category, man. Not on a certain shelf.
No, but I think this also means a lot, because I remember a conversation I was having with an author in Australia when I'd asked this, that how do you match this demand that the publisher feels you are slotted in when one or two of your books go very popular, but you want to write or try something very different. So she gave her
Yeah.
experience. She said, I had written 3 books in thrillers and they wanted me to continue, but I wanted this poetry collection. I had to bring it out.
Right.
They gave me 1 year to
Right.
write that thriller. I could not write it. I told her, let me write that. Nobody will read it, but let me write that book. I need to get it out. It's here. It's stuck there. The thriller will not come out. So that
And so she
description, now that it's choking you.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think besides the market, now we need to follow our inner instincts as writers and creators. And whether it's a very hard to sell form like poetry, or whether it is nearly at that moment when I started a nearly unknown form as haibun, whether it's short stories, which is again has its own support, non-support systems, whether it's novels, whether it's this genre or that genre. I think we are feeding our instincts of what we want to write, and that's the truest way to be, rather than what the market wants. Or I think the market should not be followed as much as you lead the market. Because as a storyteller, you might get the first idea, na? And it might be a fascinating idea. Why would you give that up to write one tired idea that is told ki market ko chahiye ye? Let the market change, because
True.
you will change it. You will just write another crazy book, or it'll work, not work. Doesn't matter. But I think also we need to take risks.
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
storytellers or as writers, take risk. What is the maximum that can go wrong? That somebody doesn't read this book
So that,
and doesn't chuckle like us.
yes. So
That's the
in that,
maximum risk.
yeah,
Yeah, but I wrote it. That's so important for me.
very important. In that lady's words, she told me that book did terribly when it came out. I don't even know if complete 10 people read it, but I'm very proud of that book and I'm happy I did it because I got it
Absolutely,
out of my
absolutely.
system.
Yes, and also, I think these books are snapshots, as I said, of our lives at that time. They also become footprints of our whole journey. When you look back, a book is a footprint.
Yeah, true.
So I'm just sharing this footprint, thumbprint, or whatever print.
I love the cover, Rochelle.
Because
Somebody has just the cover design needs another shout out completely. It's
yes,
just amazing.
Isha Singh has done this.
It's amazing job. It's very well done and it captures everything about this crazy book. Seriously, it's very well
So
done.
she interpreted it herself,
Wow.
and then I was tweaking it and saying, no, Rita is Anglo-Indian, so make her a little Gora. And इसको थोड़ा ये गोवन है तो गोवन सन का थोड़ा सावला.
Superbly
Make her a
done.
little.
Job superbly done.
But she did a wonderful job actually. So all hats off to Isha Singh. So yeah.
Superb. So what
And I
part of
must thank you also. I must thank you here, because what do we say about the blurb, the endorsement rather?
Oh yes. I remember.
Don't forget that, Namrata. Don't forget the way you support your fellow writers.
Of course, of course.
So a shout out to you too.
Thank you so much. And it means a lot getting a first glimpse of your books always. So that's always a very special feeling.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what did the DaCosta family allow you to say as a writer that your previous work could not?
I think when you take characters who are mad, deluded, they are not behaving themselves, then as a writer, you don't need to behave yourself either. And when you misbehave, a
Yeah.
lot of truths come out, which are generally guarded. So I think the DaCosta family novel allowed me to be completely whacked out crazy. Like, I mean, imagine this fact that Inspector Gaitonde is as obsessed with his chappal cases, missing chappal cases. So when he gets his first, assignment, which is supposed to be a serious assignment for work promotions, he still tells his boss, but I have 10 missing chappal cases. So that shows an immersion or a dedication like a Howard Rook for me in chappal ways. Right?
True.
So, so it allows you to be whacked out crazy, but you're telling something important. You're saying Gaitonde is a person who doesn't believe in hierarchies.
Yeah.
He's like, let it be a shootout of a big man, but my missing chappal pairs are equally important. It
Equally.
makes someone's life happy when they get their second chappal back, or they get their chappals back. Isn't chappal important? So who can break hierarchy more than Gaitonde with his chappal controversies? Or
Yeah.
like, so so yeah. So I think each character, even Jason, because I do have this little obsession with the last sunset, because a lot of my decisions of my life come from the last sunset thought.
Okay.
What it would be before dementia and before Alzheimer's. If I look back at my life, would I be happy with this decision? Is my last sunset decision I always take. So Jason is obsessed with mortality.
Mhm.
He's with his dead bodies. He loves his dead bodies, and he's a hands-on grave digger. See, that's so important, because he tells you that he, like a hands-on mother, There are so many people who say we are hands-on, mothers or parents. We are hands-on gardeners. Jason is a hands-on grave digger. He doesn't like anyone else digging those graves. He has this joy. So when Gaitonde says, "Can you dig that grave? Call some people." He's like, "Why can't I do it?" I dig 15 graves in a day. He's talking about productivity.
Yeah.
See, each line is so important because I've taken it from society of his productivity, 15
Yeah.
graves a day. So I think there's a lot of madness in this. If you were to read under the layers of, the whole thing, lot of truths there, but that's what it is. So every character allowed me to be my mad self. Like, look, when Jason is embalming his dead father, at one point he's actually embalming his buttocks and saying they are like crossbuds, and he's thinking of what his father taught him. So he's paying homage, but in a very ridiculous way. I mean, where will you find a son, embalming his dead father's
Father.
crossbuds of buttocks, thinking about what he taught him? I don't think that's respectfully disrespectful. So there was somebody who said this is an irreverent book, and I was like so happy to be irreverent.
That's so very well said. So Rochelle, you enjoyed this book. We enjoyed this book. It was fun, characters and everything. Is there anything, any part of this novel that still haunts you? A character, a moment, or maybe something that you left unsaid there, which you want to change or would like to redo if given a chance?
Yeah, no, I don't think, Namrata. I think I said what I had to. Of course, you give a writer more space, they will write even a 1 lakh, worded book. But I wanted to stop at 80,000 for a reason. And the pacing also, wherever it is fast, wherever it is slow, that's exactly the way I wanted it. So this book is exactly the way I wanted it. No regrets. It was this. This was it. This was it. The canvas.
Nice. So, if you had to spend a week living with one member of the DaCosta family, who would it be, and who would you absolutely avoid?
So it would absolutely be Jason. I would have loved Gaitonde, but he runs in the sun and all that. I don't want so much of dhoop. I would just definitely hang out in the graveyard and hang out with Jason and his, this whole obsession with how the souls and the energy moves out of their bodies. And like the way Jason says, no, that when we are born, we are 1% already dead and 99% alive. And by the time we are dead, we are 1% alive and 99% dead. And I'm like, this is so nonsensically sense. So I would definitely spend time with Jason because I like the end. The graveyard is like the full stop at the end of a long sentence of life. And I wouldn't spend time with Pedro because I think Pedro is too deluded, too insufferable. He's too full of himself. He doesn't understand women. He doesn't understand anything, actually. He doesn't understand family. So I think he's too insufferable. So I wouldn't spend any time with Pedro, but I would surely, surely hang out in the graveyard. Not maybe digging graves, metaphorically, but I would definitely hang out with Jason.
Wow, I love those choices there. So, let's suppose Rita writes a memoir after all this madness. What would be its title, and who do you think would blurb it?
See, I don't know the title. If she's very serious, she could have written something very seriously. But I think you should blurb it again because you're going to get two perspectives, Namrata, and then you'll know who was more madder.
Yeah.
Was it the
So,
author Rochelle or was it Rita?
Rita.
So you're going to get a glimpse that no one ever got.
Yeah, I just imagine the kind of secrets she could tell me through that story.
Yes. So you're going to get like an all-time, once upon a time, exclusive glimpse, which
Yeah,
no one else gets.
absolutely.
And we don't know with what seriousness she may write, right? Because she is a very serious character.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
find her, we find her funny, but she's very serious. She's on a serious mission. So I don't know. She may not write it. She may not be chuckling when she's writing a memoir. I think she's going to write an angry memoir.
Very angry. I can imagine that. She would be very angry. And Rochelle, that brings us to the last question. So you wrote a story about decay, chaos, and inheritance. If you could pass on one truth from this novel to future generations, what would it be?
So under everything else, I would say that the message in the story is where Maggie ends or starts her
Yeah.
life in the epilogue, where she is actually going to break the cycles or the vicious cycles of greed. and injustice. And that's what I think is the message in this book, or at least what I wanted to give. I don't know what the readers will take, because readers interpret things in their own way, in their own magical way. But this is one message that was truly there, that the new generations can always break the vicious cycles that the old generations create of any injustice, discriminations, greed, because they have a new way of thinking. So that definitely is a message. And other than that, no, the other message is more like, please read different genres, so that writers like me, mad writers like me, can write differently. Because already there were two readers who came very grim faced, okay, to read this book, and they were not happy. And I was like, please allow some madness and humor in your life. I know the world around is very grim, okay, but please allow that little chuckle, because otherwise we can't write these books. We'd have to only write very serious books of all kinds. We must explore different genres. So we should be also readers open to those, because we are writers. As we are writers, we are open to those. So I think that is more like a message in general. But yeah.
That was brilliant, Rochelle. And that, dear listeners, was Rochelle Potkar in all her genre-defying, chaos-loving, truth-slinging brilliance. From poetic nuance to explosive novels to screenplays that demand to be seen, Rochelle continues to surprise us. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a real joy to not just read her stories, but to watch her grow into a fearless storyteller that she is today. The DaCosta family, with this book, you are in for a future full of wild characters, wicked turns, and a whole lot of heart. Pick up the book, brace yourself for the madness, and maybe don't just trust anyone with a shot. I'll be adding all the links where you can buy the book, and of course, the links to Rochelle's social media, because authors love feedback. If you happen to pick any of her books, do share your feedback, do drop a review. They would love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, keep reading dangerously. And thank you so much, Rochelle, for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Namrata. And I want to commend you on becoming the pillar, the literary pillar of our society. Okay. So I must commend you on your wonderful, brilliant journey from the time we met at Writers Workshop in University of East Anglia course to now. I'm seeing you grow, and your journey inspires me so much. So thank you for becoming that pillar of society.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rochelle.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you.